Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joe Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
This week on the show, we're talking about INTJs and careers. So if you're an INTJ listening along or you've got an INTJ in your life, welcome to the show. This is going to be a very interesting conversation today. We're actually talking about careers and particularly about INTJs because we're in the middle of running our mentorship program called Personality Life Path Mentorship. This is designed to understand not just how you're wired in your personality, but to chart the pathway forward in your life. And we're working with students right now going through all of the cognitive functions, the Jungian cognitive functions. There's 8 of them, 4 learning and 4 decision-making functions. Each of them, we believe, represents an archetypical energy, both in the world, generally around us, but also inside of our personalities. We have to interface with all these parts of the world. So we're walking students through over 8 weeks. We're taking one function a week, and we're exploring how that function and its energy shows up in your life. And we're giving exercises, and then we're reporting back on the next call the following week to, okay, how did that feel in your life? Where does it show? What do you need more of, less of? What's your relationship to this? And we're walking through all 8 of them. In the midst of this program, though, and it's going to come up with a live ending event that we're going to connect all this for a life path forward, making a plan for your life as a student. As we're talking with students about this, transitions keep coming up. In fact, I think most students are part of this program because they're in a transition moment of their life. A few people are in relationship transitions, either starting out in a new relationship or they're reevaluating one they've been in. There's some people altering the life path that they're on. Maybe they're going, I'm not living the life path that's my life path. I'm on somebody else's life path. I want my own life path. And many people are reporting a transition moment in their career. And we saw this come up so many times, we thought, well, let's take a moment and record a series of podcasts talking about each of the 16 Myers-Briggs types and their relationship to career. Today, we're talking about INTJ. So as we get into this, we're going to introduce this concept today, both at a more accessible level if you're new to type, but also at a deeper level if you're a type geek, on what's called personality subtypes. Tony, maybe just give us a broad brush, and then we can go into detail right after that.
Yeah, and we also, after we talk a little bit about what these subtypes are, we did a full podcast with our friend and colleague, Dr. Dario Nardi, who introduced properly this idea of subtypes in a complete podcast. So if you're interested in going further down this rabbit's hole, I highly recommend checking that one out.
Is this an improper use of subtypes today?
Is it? Is it improper?
You said he introduced it properly.
Well, I meant like he did an entire hour.
I know what you meant. I was
introducing the concept, whereas we're just going to touch on it and move on. We're actually going to use it as a framework for the conversation because while it appears as if our Myers-Briggs type is pre-wired inside of us, so we kind of come out of the blister packaging with our type, our subtype is more nurture. And one of the major influences on how we are wired with our subtype is the career we choose, right? The thing we spend 40 plus hours a week doing is going to alter how our brains are, wired to respond to the environment. So the reason why subtypes and careers are such a natural marriage is that they impact each other very much so. So our type impacts the things we're interested in and the careers we're likely to choose. And then the careers we actually do choose impact the flavor of our type that we're going to manifest as. And this changes and alters over time. So if we go through these different subtypes and it's very common for a person to say, oh, I kind of see myself in 1 or 2 of those, or maybe even all 4, you might be right. You might have lived long enough and experienced enough life that you have traveled through all 4 of these subtypes.
Okay. But before we get into any of the subtype stuff, I just want to talk about the internet. What it tells INTJs are the top 10 careers. Now, this is according to the internet. This isn't me. So if you're an INTJ and you go to the internet for your advice, this is the advice, or at least the list that the internet would give you based on my casual research. Number 1, top INTJ career, scientist. Number 2, engineer. Number 3, attorney or lawyer. Number 4, architect. Number 5, management consultant. Seems fitting, right? Number 6, software developer. 7, professor or teacher. 8, physician, surgeon. 9, financial analyst. And 10, executive or COO or CEO. That seems like a list that I think a lot of INTJs would resonate with. There's some stereotypes on the list, right, Antonia? But yeah, I can see a lot of INTJs going toward those types of careers.
Usually these lists, every week that we do a different type, that top 10 list is usually pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I have seen a trend that depending upon the subtype of INTJ that you must identify with, some of those careers are going to be more attractive and some are going to be kind of horrifying to think about. So not every INTJ is going to end up with all 10 of the, or like being attracted to all 10 of those careers. I will say though, there are also career paths that aren't on that list that I think are very attractive to some subtypes.
And we'll talk about those when we get into each of the subtypes. Okay, so these subtypes came from Dr. Dario Nardi's work. He still is, in his laboratory, he's connecting different personality types to EEG machines. He's watching the brain patterns show up and he's noticing trends in type. And he started to notice when he connected EEG machines to INTJs, they were showing up with 4 basic brain patterns. And then he started to look and compare this to Dr. Helen Fisher's work in neurotransmitters, and also noticed a crossover in chemicals, in the neurotransmitter chemicals that these subtypes might be attracted to. So in the laboratory, knowing somebody's an INTJ, watching the brain scans come up, he developed this quadrant of 4 personality subtypes based on every main, Myers-Briggs type. Those are, I'll just list them really quick and we'll go into all of them right now. It's a dominant INTJ, creative INTJ, normalizing INTJ, and harmonizing INTJ. We'll talk about these in a very accessible way, just in case you're new to type, but we're also going to go a little deeper into the cognitive functions and the attunement of those, and talk a little about the neurotransmitters as well. If you're a type geek and you want to know some of the math underneath the conclusions that we've come to. Oh, he also borrowed these words, the dominant, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing. If you're a student or if you've read something from socionics, these are the same terms that Dr. Victor Galenko uses in socionics. And so Dario asked him if he could use the same names for these subtypes.
Yeah, they're really solid names too, because I think they do a really good job of describing some of the key characteristics of each of the subtypes.